All right, welcome to our paint tutorial for the Midnight Winter's Magic. My name is Bree, I'm your paint lady. I'm going to walk you through step by step and stroke by stroke. My job is to give you the basic steps to create a painting, and your job is to make it art. So if there's something you want to do a little bit different, I highly recommend it, you should. To walk through what we have today, we're going to have a big flat brush. We're going to have a medium-ish big pointer brush, and we're going to have a small pointer brush. That's what I'm using today. You're welcome to use what you would like. You're gonna make sure that you have a water cup, paper towel, some glitter, and of course your paint palette. I've been using mine today, so it's a big old mess, but you wanna make sure, it's gonna look like that at the end, that you have white, black, red, blue, green. I'm using phthalo blue and phthalo green, and purple. I'm using what I call just store-bought purple. I've got this guy. You can mix it yourself. In fact, we will, but you want to make sure that you get the satin acrylic, just purple. A little add-on as well is some glow-in-the-dark paint. So make sure you got some glow-in-the-dark paint. If you downloaded your tracers, you should have your image already drawn on your canvas. And if you have any issues or need to know how to transfer the transfer tracers to your canvas, given your canvas size, there should be a link on the download of the instructions, the PDF instructions, that explains to you how to do that. Hoping that you just enjoy this download and you get to paint with me and have some fun. So let's get into it. We have got our paint palette ready to go and brushes ready to go. We're going to put those in the water cup, play the drums, smack the paper towel. That's a good thing to do every time we switch colors. We're going to go ahead and start off right away with our big flat brush, and I'm going to load it up with purple. Now, if you're mixing purple on your own, you would do red, white, and blue, and you would keep adding white and red till you got the tone you wanted, or white and blue till you got the tone you wanted, but I'm just going in with purple. I'm loading up my brush. We always want to make sure we load up the brush by working the paint into all those bristles, right? Not boogered up. I always joke, we don't want to paint with boogers. We want to keep it classy, but we do want it loaded up. All right, so I got this loaded up. We're going to tackle our canvas. We're going to start on the sky. We have these lines for where the northern lights are going to be. So I'm just going to real lightly kind of trace along them. This does not have to be perfect. I'm just going to trace along them so I can tell where they live when I decide to come back. Taking my brush sideways, skinny like a knife, trying to leave them there so I will know where they are. I'm going to use some water on this background as well. And it's okay that you have some canvas texture showing, brush strokes showing. That's fine. And I know that it's a big paintbrush, but we're not going to stress about it. Go ahead and get that around the trees. Okay. So I'm going to get this guy, purple, kind of carve out and leave space for where those northern lights are. Water is going to help you. You don't want drips, again, smack the paper towel, play the drums. We're not going for anything too perfect. This is called blocking in. We are just blocking in the color until we can figure out where some stuff's going to live. You're watching this tutorial on your own. You are welcome to take as much time as you would like to with this, but I don't recommend it. This is not really the important part as far as the finished product's going to go. So we just need to create a base layer. And if I go too fast, you are welcome to replay this, pause it, and watch it again and again. All right, we're going to take that right down to the horizon. Nothing is too great. Nothing is exact. I covered up some of my lines, but I can still tell where they live a little bit. And I'm going to call that good enough. Now, I am also going to go in with this dirty brush And I'm going to grab some of this phthalo blue. I'm going to work a little bit of water into it. I'm creating what is kind of called a wash. It's a little bit thinned out. It's a little bit watery. Now the struggle is real. We don't want drips. So we need to smack the paper towel a little bit to get the drips out of there. Our job is to kind of mess up the sky. So I'm going to start at the top of my painting. Big old brush strokes. Right away, the paint is still kind of wet, and it'll mix into that purple as we start to just lightly smear it on down. Now, here's the deal. I like to grab this paint and kind of carve out what I would call the insides or the bottom of these lines where our northern lights will live. Here's what I mean by that. I got this messy paint. I'm going to take it sideways and skinny like a knife. I'm going to start to trace along this line here and just slowly make it fade away as it gets to the curve. Ooh, there we go. More watery blue. And there we go. I'm a huge fan of finger painting. If you're using acrylic paint, if it dries on your clothes or your brushes or anything fabric, it tends to not want to come out. That's the beauty of acrylic paint. It's kind of waterproof, kind of permanent. Most of them are. But your fingers, not so much. You have oils in your skin that'll help it wash off even if it dries, so that's fine. And let's see, here's kind of an inside curve. That looks too much like I just took a marker. I'm just going to smear it a little bit. Inside curve. There's the curve. And again, if you blob over the lines, it's fine. Remember, we just have to kind of know where they live, but we don't have to make it stay pristine and untouched. We're going to paint over all that, so that's not important. Right. Areas. A little more blue paint where I want it. Jazz things up. As the paint starts to dry, you might get what I call halos, where if you go over and over and over, you'll start to peel off layers of paint that is drying. So we don't necessarily want to do that. Once I get to this part here, I'm going to keep on rocking with some blue paint, but I'm going to rinse out this big flat brush. I'm going to switch it on up to my big pointer brush. And again, I've got some water, and I'm making what's kind of known as a wash. Getting that paint, again, really working it into the bristles. They work it, right? Get it in there, load it up. I'm going to focus on the edges of the hills and the water with just the very tip of this brush. Okay, so the water is going to be this zigzaggy situation in here. And then the edge of those little hills, they just kind of fade on back. And I know that it's a big brush. We just want to be a little light with it. The harder you push down, the thicker this brush stroke will be. And so we're just being kind of light with it as we trace around these things here. And this hill too. Ooh, fantastic. All right. We want to create shadow in these hills, so leaving it looking like we just took a marker across it is not going to be ideal. So I'm going to shade up each of these little hills of paint at the bottom here with some roundy moundy brush strokes that kind of creep on up the hill. Right, here's another one, kind of the bottom, this little part that sticks out the bottom of it. I'm going to shade up, pull up the hill a little bit. The bottom of this one, I'm going to shade up, pull that up the hill. Bottom of the next one. I love finger painting. All right, these ones, let's do the same thing. And you can tell I never have very nice looking nails because I'm always painting, just Not, definitely not finger nail polish painting, but that's okay. Okay. Some of this little thing sticking out. And yeah, this is messy, right? So if you are struggling with perfectionism, we all are, let's be real. This might drive you a little crazy, but don't worry and just kind of give into it. It's going to be okay. This little thing back here, just kind of leaving it outlined for now, calling that good. The water. I'm going to get a tool really quick to show you something. We want the water to be flat. Okay, so when I say flat, here's what I mean. If you were to take a ruler for your brush strokes, they are all going to go flat across it. All right. You can even use a ruler if you'd like to help you out with this step. But we are going to go in the water and grab that darker edge that we first outlined. We're going to pull right straight across little brush strokes from the edge. Little brush strokes. I need a little more water in my paint. And you might want to switch up your brush to a smaller brush if you're having struggles getting these little tiny brush strokes across. Nice and flat. These little flat ones reach to the right. And these little flat ones kind of reach to the left just lightly. Right? Again, flat. So as we move on down, reaching out to the right, reaching out to the left. Right? Nice and flat. Grabbing that edge of the water, pulling it out, pulling it out. Is helpful, especially as we work our way down. What people tend to want to do is as they work their way around, like check this out. This is something I don't want you doing. They'll start to follow the shoreline. That's a no. That's a no. We don't want to do that. So here's a little secret. If the paint's still wet, you can usually erase it with a little bit of water. All right. We don't want it to follow. We want it to go left to right. So again, coming out from that left side. And the ruler is just there to kind of give you a visual aid. Coming out from the right, coming out from the left. And all these little fingers of paint are just going to try to meet in the middle. They don't all have to be the same. Something that can make artwork boring is if every single brushstroke is the same across the whole thing, right? That's going to be kind of boring. So instead of doing it that way, we are going to work on just making sure all of our brushstrokes come out from the left and the right in this water. Flat, messy. Maybe some are long and reach all the way across. That's cool. Maybe some aren't. Right? They're just light. They're just light. Especially here, right? Our tendency is to want to follow the shore. Nope. Look at that roller. We're going to keep it flat. Left to right. Left to right. My hope is that somewhere in the middle, this water will look lighter because we don't have any paint in there. Right? We just have brush strokes, especially in here. Ooh, we want to start to tilt it and follow the water, but we don't want to do that. Okay, so we're just going to keep it again. If that ruler helps, or a piece of paper, left to right. Get a little water in that brush. No drips. Get the drips out. Nice and flat. Coming on in from the right side. Nice and flat. All right. Well, cool. If you have some extra watery paint on your brush, tackle some extra spots up at the top of your sky. Why not? Make the top pretty dark. That it gives the illusion of midnight without having to really pop any black in that sky. We just want it to look dark and random. Ooh, that was a big goober of paint. That's okay. use a little water, smack the paper towel, finger paint a little, smear it all in there. Call that good. All right. Rinse out that brush. I'm going to keep on using it. This is that big pointer brush. I'm going to do a little bit of mixing now. I'm going to mix up some color. Make sure you rinsed it out and you smack the paper towel. I'm going to grab a big old scoop of white. My paint's been sitting out for a little bit, it's starting to dry, but a big old scoop of white and a small scoop of red. So I've got a big white and a small red. I'm going to come up with a light pink. A big white and a small red. I'm going to mix that together. Come up with a light pink paint. Ooh, I got a little blue in that brush, but that's okay. And kind of roll, squeegee it out. I want it loaded up, not boogered up. With this light pink now, I'm just going to start to tackle the bottom of my sky. Right along that horizon line here. Just going to kind of get some of this mixed into the purple of the sky. Next to my trees, I'm not too worried about the trees. I'll paint them later. I know where they live. I'm going to creep it on up. Side of my sky. Maybe a little in here. Almost like it's just light kind of emanating from the bottom of the sky. In between these trees a little bit. Some haphazard brush strokes here and there. And again, maybe some finger painting, kind of blend it in. I love it. Concentrate some of this color now on the tops of my lines. We went through with some blue, and now I'm just going to go kind of along the top, like ends of the lines, if you will. Water. Imagine this little end of a line here. I'm going to kind of start to feather some of that up along the top and just kind of feather it up. Looks good. Let's see, how about this one? Go along the top of it, and a little swirl. Some of my blue is still wet. Feather some brush strokes up. Some pink there. Maybe the top of this one. And I don't want anything to look too harsh. Just kind of soft. So I put some pink in there. Now I'm going to rinse out that big pointer brush, smack the paper towel, and I'm going to go back to some purple. I'm going to go back into some purple. The paint is a little bit thick. You can mix a little water in it. We're not quite going for a wash, but you can mix a little water in to kind of thin it up a little bit. And that'll be good. All right, with some purple, if there's any area in my sky, I feel I just want to pop a little purple back into it, especially in the middle. I kind of imagine that the top is very dark and bluish, and then we got some purple in the middle. I'll kind of get my brush going in those little floofy northern light things. They're just going to be in the background anyway. We're going to cover all them up, but sometimes it's fun once you've filled it in to kind of get some little floofy brush strokes going. Imagine some through here. Here, this side, get some. Work back in. It's your sky. You can play around with the water, you can play around with the purple, play around with any of the colors that you like, you are welcome to. As long as we have something kind of more pinkish at the bottom, bluish at the top, different tones of purple in the middle, we're going to be great. Oh, I could do that for hours. Let's be real. I never know when I'm done. But I'm going to say we're done now. So next, we are going to keep on using the purple and keep on using this brush. We're going to paint in our hills. We should already have some shadow, so not the water. Try to remember where that water line is. We're going to be painting in the hills, especially the tops, and kind of smearing it through the bottom. Blend them if you want to with a little finger paint. This little triangle back here on the horizon line, I'm going to call that good. Right? And we got this little hill here. Nothing is too tight and nailed down yet. It's still very loosey-goosey. Creeping this on over into our trees. Sometimes you get what I call sketchy business. That's just that rough, kind of crusty paint. It's almost like the paint isn't soaking into the canvas. You get little white dots. If you're getting those little white dots, you might not quite have enough paint on your brush, or your paint might be a little dried out like mine is, and you might need to put some water in it. Kind of helps it settle down into the canvas. I was setting up my camera and I pumped my paint already, so it got a little bit dry. So I'm getting some sketchy business, but got more layers to go, so hopefully it'll be okay. And here we go. All right, my next little hill. You know, and if you blob into your water a little bit, it's fine. Obviously, these trees back here, they're getting to be a mess. That's fine. We really don't want anything to be too tight yet. People worry about perfection at this point, and they feel like if they don't control it right now, it won't look good at the end. And I sound like a broken record, but I've said it a million times. That's not true. In fact, sometimes the more quote unquote messy you are at the beginning, the better it looks at the end. I like to use a lot of baking analogies. It's kind of like the more you mix the batter like crazy at the beginning, the better that cake can turn out. If you don't incorporate all those ingredients, it might not work. And if you sat and you cracked one egg perfectly and mixed it perfectly, like, oof, just what a waste of time. Save that for the decorating. Save that for the end. Save that for sprinkles, right? You don't need that now. All right. Excellent. Great. We got that in there. If we want to be a little bit fun while it is still wet, who doesn't want to be a little bit fun? You can take this messy brush. I'm still not rinsing it out. And I'm going to get some white, some messy, dirty white here, a scoop of white, and a little, so I'm using phthalo blue, and it's just really heavily pigmented, a little blue. A little blue goes a long way. To create light blue mixed into my brush. It already has a little bit of purple in it. So dare I say this is almost like a periwinkle? I always thought that that was the silliest name for a color, but it's periwinkle, kind of. A little water, load it up, not blur it up. Now I'm going to add a little bit of texture to my snowy hills. They don't look very snowy right now, but they will. I'm going to imagine each hill as its own roundy, moundy thing. Let's start in the front here. I'm going to go to the top of this one with some blue, and going along the top, and a roundy, moundy out some brush strokes, like I'm painting over the top of a loaf of bread. Boop. Right? Real loose though, real loose. Here's the next one. Tip of the brush, kind of finding the top of this one. And here's some roundy, moundy goobers of paint coming out from that guy there. They're not perfect. They're real loose. Here's another one coming along the top of this little snowy area. Pull on some goobery brush strokes down. Love it. And this next one, he's far away, but there's the top. He gets a little bit too. So the next ones, we're gonna go. I wish I was almost like a left-handed. I feel like this would be easier if we painted left-handed right here and kind of pulled some brush strokes down on those. Oh yeah, who doesn't love finger painting? Let's try some of that. That's fine. Well, there you go. I'm talking about finger painting. All right, here's the top of this one. Some there's a paint. You know, we don't want anything to look too perfect. What do I mean by that? Sometimes I'm teaching and I have a student that's like, there's the snow. That's really harsh, right? So that's great. It's on the top. And now we kind of want to like blend it in, smear it in, goobery brush stroke it in. I don't want anything too perfect. You see a little messy in the background here. You can have a little bit. This guy in the foreground, all of his brush strokes are coming out at us. So I'm going to start at the top of him. I'm going to pull some brush strokes. I'm twirling my brush around, goobering the brush around. Some of these brush strokes are mixing and some of them are just staying on their own. It's fine. Fantastic. I love it. All right, once we got that done, I'm gonna go ahead and rinse out the brush. And at any time, if you need to pause the video, rinse out your water, feel free. I haven't yet, but if you would like to, feel free at any time. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch up my brush now, and I'm going to use my little pointer brush. I'm using an 11 by 14 canvas today. If you had a bigger canvas, when I teach classes, I usually teach on a 16 by 20, so I might stick with my bigger pointer brush. But since this is a littler canvas, I'm going to use a little pointer brush, and I'm going to tackle my Northern Lights and my water with a base coat of what I'm going to call almost like toothpaste. I want it to be a real minty green. So I'm going to grab a big old scoop, maybe 2 or 3, because this is a little brush, right, of white. I'm going to add into that 1 scoop of my phthalo green, and I hopefully get just a really fun aqua, a minty aqua. Let's see, how's that looking? I feel like that's pretty good. Might pop in a little more green. I want it pretty light, but a nice minty aqua. Fabulous. All right, perfect example as we're mixing, right? Oof, we cannot paint with that. So boogered up brushes, roll, squeegee them out. Loaded up is good, but not boogered up. Here's a quick technique I like to do for Northern Lights to get the base of these floofs going. We're going to paint with 2 brushes at once. I'm going to go back to my big flat brush. We're going to really push to get that water out of it. An example, I'm going to kind of get the water out of the base of those bristles. Right, a lot of water lives like the heel of the brush. Water lives in there, so dry it out. Get this guy a crazy hairdo, right? Okay, so we have our brush loaded up, our little one, with our toothpaste. And we're going to find our line. I'm going to start on this one. I've kind of lost some of them. I'm going to imagine there should be 4. So I'm going to say, I'm going to start on this one, and I'm just going to paint in 1 line to start. Okay, I think that's good. And then once I get that line figured out, I'm going to add a couple spots of a little bit thicker paint, just so I have something to work with. Doesn't dry out. Then you can set this down. I usually don't leave brushes with paint in them, but we're going to work real fast. With this one, our job is to take that line of paint and smear it up. Remember this ruler? You don't have to have an actual ruler. The name of the game is up, okay? So I'm going to grab this line and lightly dust and smear some of this paint up. Okay? Same with this one as I work my way around. Yep, they're going to overlap. There we go. Here we go. Pulling this one up. You can give them a little curve if you want to. And see, my paint's already dry. Again, a little bit thicker paint laid down on that toothpaste line. And then I'm real lightly going straight on that canvas with this brush, just using the bristles. Pull up. Those little lines of paint. Okay. Whew. That base coat is done. Move on to the next one, a goober of paint. Imagining I got a line here. Trying to see where it was. Just gonna paint that in. Right. And some areas, especially at the top. Get some thicker wet paint. I'm gonna zoom in on this one. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Bear with me. Okay. So straight on the canvas. Messed up hair bristles here. Lightly grabbing that wet paint. Flinging it up. Lovely. A little bit more through here. Trace some of this right up. My brush sideways, skinny like a knife to get some real tall ones here and there. It's real light. Lovely. Already dry. Dries pretty fast. There. Little. Fantastic. Just sit here. Move that ruler off to the side. Alright, here's my next line. This one kind of broke into two, I remember. There's that. Fabulous. Wonderful. I'm going to find some areas of a little bit thicker paint. Maybe down here at the bottom. Up. Soft. Around this edge here. A little bit thicker paint. And just the tip of these bristles. And some of that up. Some sideways. Like a knife. Stick. And back on it there. on this side. Ooh, that paint is thick. A little bit. Some of this. Fun. And the next one. And at the top here. Really pull some of these little top. Edge. And overlap, and that's okay. Lovely. Awesome. So I'm going to take this brush that I'm using, this little pointer brush, kind of thin out some of this aqua paint. I'm going to find what I call like echoes or swooshes or swirls. These are just little bits of swirly aurora borealis. Just kind of go outside the edges, give it a little extra action, a little extra movement. A little water in that paint. My lines here. It's just nice and thin. A little extra swirl and whirl here and there. Fantastic. I love it. It's looking great. We're going to keep on using this little brush and this aqua toothpaste color on the middle of our water. And again, if we were to reference that ruler, we want these brush strokes to stay flat. Hopefully everywhere that's kind of white in the middle is going to get a little coat of this thinned out watery aqua paint. Water in it, a little bit see-through hopefully, and we're just smearing it through the middle of our water. I'm using my finger a little bit. Just make sure the middle gets a little highlight. I remember a game growing up called Operation, where you couldn't touch the edge. There was this little cartoon man, and you had these little pinchers, and he had all these little compartments in them with little trinkets like a bone and, wishbone. You had to take these metal tweezers and get in and pull those little items out without touching the edge, or it made a horrible noise that I won't imitate because you will jump out of your skin while you are painting. Gave everybody in the 80s PTSD. And I kind of think of that a little bit when I'm doing something like this. Like, I want to focus it on the middle and just barely sneak it to the edge. If it touches the edge a little, that's fine. But mostly it's in the middle of whatever the shape is. Trying to avoid those edges a little bit. Fantastic. We kept them all flat. Wonderful. All right, let's go ahead and rinse out that brush. We're going to do a little bit of work on our background trees. I am going to, don't forget to rinse out your big flat brush too. They should all be rinsed out. I'm going to go back to my bigger pointer brush, get the water out of it. We have some background trees to kind of paint in here. So I'm going to find those with my background, or my big, big pointer brush in the background. We're going to mix up a darker purple. So we're going to mix up purple from scratch. I'm going to take a scoop of white, plop it down near your purple or in it or on its own plate. It's fine. Scoop of blue, phthalo blue, and a scoop of red. And mix those together. And hopefully get a darker purple. Now, if it looks about the same, I'm going to throw a little bit more blue in it, maybe a little bit more red in it. I want it to be dark. If it starts to look weirdly brownish, you might need a little more blue. I've had people tell me they think it looks brown, and I don't think it's necessarily brown, but you're probably seeing some form of burgundy with that red in there. So we're going to go for just kind of a darker bluish purple. I gotta go back into some red. Definitely dark. We call this color aubergine. It's the French word for eggplant, right? It's just a very dark purplish color. Fantastic. All right, load it up, not over it up. Kind of roll, squeegee the paint out of that brush. These are for background trees. Here's the deal with those. We're going to imagine that these guys that we haven't painted yet are friends with a whole row of background trees that are just kind of peeking up in between them. The general idea is they're pointy on the top and they're wider at the bottom, and all their feet line up with this horizon line. How many are there? 72. I don't know. I'm just kidding, but it doesn't really matter, and we don't have to be too particular with this. Here's a fun way that I like to do it if you want. You can figure out how tall they are with a really thin line. I'm going to imagine they're somewhat smaller in the middle, maybe, a little bit smaller than the smallest trees here. And they kind of match the same size as these other trees on the edge as they go up. So I'm just going to draw some lines. I'm going to draw a really thin line here to the bottom, maybe a little bit different there, maybe there. There's one, there's one. They can be a little different. They don't have to be the same. Got to creep some in between these little friends here. They're in between the other trees. That gives me a good idea where these trees are going to live. And then I like to just add little brushy brush strokes to the left, down to the bottom, flatten it out, and like an arrow pointing at the top. Brushy brush strokes to the right, down to the bottom. You could also zigzag, zig to the bottom, and zig to the bottom, flatten them out. But they don't look perfect, and they're going to overlap, and we might kind of lose where one starts and one stops. That's okay. Here's another one. Zig, down to the bottom. Now I have a Spice Girls song stuck in my head. And again, look at these poor trees we haven't painted in yet. They're neglected and they're just getting so messy. Here, we gotta sneak that one in. And that's okay. We'll find them again. Here we go. This is just a big old mess on the side, but it's fine. The idea is we are looking at a forest from far away, so we wouldn't be able to see each individual tree especially well. We do have to make sure all their feet come right down that horizon line. I see, oh, look at that goober. We can't paint with goobers. I see hovering trees all the time. And it makes me nervous, right? We got to plant our trees down to the ground. And, we're being a little more purposeful with our brush strokes, but they're still messy. They're still messy. We are not working on anything perfect yet. Fantastic. While these trees are still a little bit wet, I'm going to take my dirty brush and then go back into whatever I had for just light purple. I'm just going to get a little bit of that like regular straight up from the bottle purple that we had. I'm going to find little spots of snow that have fallen on these trees. Imagine that each one of these trees, they're kind of like, well, look at these ones, rings. I think there's rings of the pine boughs. And so the snow is going to fall bloop, bloop, bloop on the edge, like a little ballerina skirt, kind of frayed out. I know, so much detail for a background tree. Don't overthink this. I'm just going to imagine like maybe someone would be on that little ballerina skirt and a little on that one, and you're probably like, wait, what the heck is even happening? That's really hard to see. So no one's going to judge this too much. Like, boop, 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 there's a little ballerina skirt. And when in doubt, just, I don't know, slap some paint on it. We're just kind of varying up the tone in the background. So even though they're way, way far away, pine trees, a little mystery to them. Like there's something going on with them. There's a little variation in some of their tones. All right. Here we go. Things next. We're going to rinse out that brush. And it's time to do a little bit of work on these darker trees. Again, you could use that big pointer brush. I'm going to go in with my small pointer brush because I want a little more detail. We can see these guys better than those ones in the background. So I want just a little more detail on these ones. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with straight up blue in my little pointer brush. And my paint's getting a little thick. I need to add a little water to it. Getting a little bit like crusted over pudding. Bring it back to life with some water and straight up blue. I'm going to imagine that each ring of this tree is kind of like a splayed out little ballerina skirt. All right. And we're just going to go layer by layer on these trees. We're going to start on the lowest layer, working our way up. Now, hopefully, if you've been messy and painting messy, your background has kind of crept its way in. That's fine because we're going to paint over it. We're going to get on top of it here. First things first, we're going to imagine that this first layer here of our cake is going to get a whole little pew, 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 dusty, cute little ballerina skirt. I mean that the brush strokes on this layer kind of flail out to the right, straight down in the middle, and then flail out to the left. A little dusty, cute little tutu. Right? I love it. We got to vary that up a little bit. I'm going to go in with just a little bit of white worked into the tip of my brush. I'm going to add just like a little frosting, some little frosting blobs. See, I'm holding the brush. I'm using the shape of the brush and shape these little blobs. Little blobs curve out to the right, ta-da, straight up and down in the middle. They kind of curve out to the left. They just make things a little bit lighter on the edge. A little dark blue top layer of this cake. Whew. Okay, next one. Here we go. Let's just work on kind of frosting the top layer, the top of this next layer of cake. So here's what I mean. Here's like a little ballerina skirt. I'll have a little bit of space between this one and this one. Little brush strokes flail out to the right, straight through the middle, woo, out to the left. Now I'm going to get a little bit of white on my brush. And I'm going to find just some little, almost like flower petals. The next, you can pull the brush strokes down, or you can use the shape of your brush, pull them back into the tree. The next layer of the tree. Let's zoom in for this one. I haven't even rinsed my brush. I'm just going right back into that phthalo blue. It's so dark. So here's where, like, I only have this much space left of canvas, but I know my tree's bigger. So we're going to paint what we know, not always what we see. Oh, there's the cute little ballerina skirt. And a little bit of white on my brush. Pull these brush strokes in from the left, right up and down through the middle, and then pull them in right. We're creating little valleys of shadow. Let's keep going. Let's keep rocking. Here we go. Here's the next one. No, it's whiter than that tiny little bit of white. No, it is. That'll be my next ring. A little bit of white on this brush. Just kind of like how the colors mix in the bristles. Right? Oop, gotta curve it. Wee, wee. Out from the right there. Blue. Top. Turning a little skinnier. White. Blue. And smaller. Oh, I have some white in my brush. They're getting a little lighter. That's okay. Blue. There right away. Oof, there we go. A little messy at the top. It doesn't matter. It'll be fine. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and do that to this next one on the right. This guy. You need to rinse your brush and start over. That's cool. Otherwise, let's just whip through this one. Here's this bottom layer. A little white. Pulling that out. Clear. And white. Next layer, get the cake is dark at the top. Flailing out to the right, flailing out to the left. A little bit of white to just frost. One of the tips of that guy. Gonna make something up on the edge there. That cake. Darker. Cake. And this guy I'm going a little faster on because all dark layers done. Light. It got messy at the end, but it's okay. All right, they're little background friends. I'm gonna rinse that out. They're background friends. I actually want them to be just a little bit more like the dark purple, but this time with the white mixed in. So if you still have some of your background dark purple, we can bring it back to life with some water, or we can mix up some new stuff or mix some purple into it. Basically, it was American flag colors, red, white, and blue. And I got my little brush here. We're going to kind of do the same thing, layer by layer. Now, these trees are little, they're tucked in behind, so we're just going to do the best we can. I'm going to imagine that this would be the base. It's the same color as the background, so I got to work fast. I'm going to grab a little bit of dirty white here on the very tip of the brush, kind of dust bottom of that little ballerina skirt. All right, working back into my purple. Imagine this next one here. Bottom. The skirt. Back to the purple. And a little bit of white. Need more here. Sorry about that. White. A little bit of got this background guy. So I'm gonna just kind of wipe my brush off, Again, going back into some of that darker purple. Starting at the bottom of the cake here, this layer, the top of that layer. I can only see part of it, dark part. I'm going to grab a little bit of white, lighten up the bottom. Go back into darker purple, layer of that cake, and a little bit of white. The next layer of the cake, a little bit of white. Next layer, white. Oof, I'm just making it up now because I don't know what's going on with this tree, but top of that layer is a little bit darker. And then we just dust on some little flower petals a little bit later. Oh, again, none of this is really locked in or really tight right now. I want it to be a little loosey-goosey. I'm going to rinse out that brush. It'd be a great time to get some clean water. So feel free to take a little mini break. I'm going to trade out this water for some clean water. All right. Rinse them out good. We're going to go back to the Northern Lights and the water for a minute. So we're going to use that two-brush thing, that two-brush technique. Again, really dry out that big flat brush so it is clean and damp. And not going to be dripping with water. Mess up his hair. Mess up his hair. All right, we got this little brush. We need to go in to some straight up yellow. Some straight up yellow. I'm going to mix a little bit of clean water into it to bring it back to life. If you just pumped it, you're probably great. Mine, I'm getting a little bit thick, so straight up yellow. Here we go. I'm going to find, remember loading up that brush, I'm going to find a couple areas where I'm going to add this straight up yellow. So I'm going to imagine in my background, Northern Lights, that I might have some of this. Yep, just stuck my hand in the paint. Happens a lot. Like a little curve, right? So maybe on this little curve there, a little tiny taste, and then grab this guy, just real soft. Pull some of that up. Okay. Might skip a little edge here, and then just a little bit there. The same deal. Just dusting real lightly, a little bit of it up here and there. All right. Moving on this, maybe just a little bit on that curve there. And perhaps a little there. You get to decide where you just want to add a little touch of this yellow. That'll kind of give us some green tones, more like grass green tones with our mint. So I don't want to do it everywhere. And I'm just gonna put it in here and there. Fantastic. Bonus round. That was a nice little tone of some kind of yellowy greens to go in there. But I do want to get a nice crisp light yellow as well. So we are going to take a little bit of yellow, plop it down somewhere clean, try to find some clean white and mix that into it. So I've got some yellow and some white mixed in together. Just give me a light yellow. White makes things more opaque, which means not see-through. So opaque is the opposite. Transparent. So now on those same spots of yellow, just real lightly, and add a little line, and then going back in with my crazy hairbrush, Scoop some of that up. Here and there. Maybe sideways, skinny like a knife. Ooh, just little bits. So fun. Maybe I'll go over this part near my other yellow, but a little off to the side. Scoop some of that up. You know, if you lose a little featheries, add a little thicker paint. A little thicker paint. Sideways and skinny like a knife. Move out the bottom of the line a little bit. Come on this one here a little bit. A little bit. You know, you're the artist. I like to tell people my job is to give you the basic steps to make a painting, and your job is to make it art. You want to do something different, you get to do something different. Love it. All right, maybe a little touch of this at the top of this one. Struggling to get some nice thin lines out of this paint, so I added a little bit of water. Too much water and it makes it transparent. But a little bit of water. Low. If these look crazy, you're right, they do. The northern lights do look kind of crazy. There's a lot going on, and that's okay. So now, with this yellow in our water, this yellow that has a little white in it, we're going to find just a couple spots. Remember, we need to bust out the ruler again. Flat. Think operation. We don't want to touch the middle. We don't want to add them in everywhere. So flat. Here's a little bit in the back. You need to use your little flat brush to kind of smear it out a bit. Ooh, don't touch the sides. All right, I'm going to skip a little space. Maybe just add a little bit, that part of our curvy water. Again, flat. Keeping these flat. Middle. Okay, a little goes a long way, and they're not all exactly the same. Mine out a little bit. Flat. Let's see. Don't have to be everywhere. We do want just a little touch of them. Just a little touch of them. So it looks reflective. Ta-da! All right. Let's rinse that out. All right, last thing. Out of the brush. Hopefully you have some clean white paint. We're going to go in with some clean white paint on that little brush. I'm going to pop these northern lights one last time. So, get the water out of that big flat brush. Don't want any drips. The heel down. Here we go with the white. We are going to find like almost like a little dotted line along the original line. Just lightly swoop on up. Fantastic. Dots, little dotted lines. Swoop on up. There. Line. Swoop it on up. Obviously, if you have trees or something, you got to kind of avoid them. We're imagining this is all in the background. Red line up there. Little swooshies. Technical terms, swooshies. Sweeping it up. Okay if some go rogue. Makes your northern lights look a little more interesting. You want to do some different colors? You are welcome to. All day. How do you know when to stop? I don't know. I just feel like once it's good enough, I just stop. I had a professor tell me once that when you are one brushstroke away from it being perfect, just stop. I feel like that's been pretty good advice my whole life, which I'm clearly not following right now because I just keep adding white to this one. And now I feel like he needs a little more white over here. So I might live to regret this, but we'll find out. You know what? Be bold. Try something. Why not? All right. That's pretty good. So we're going to rinse out the brush from there. We're going to go for some contrast. We're going to take this little brush. We're going to go into our black. We're going to go into our black. And a little bit of water in there if it's getting a little bit thick. I'm going to go underneath my trees. I'm going to just add in some quick little lines. Like little grass is growing, kind of peeking out along the edge of where these trees are growing on that bank. Just the tip of the brush. Maybe a little back there on that one. Love it. And just again, just little peaks. Some in there. And then the very, very, very edge of the water underneath each bank of snow. Check this out. Again, going back to that 2-brush painting technique. We're going to smear it, but this time down. All right, so let's imagine this is underneath, just a really light layer of black underneath an embankment of snow. Switch it on up, and now think of that ruler. These have to go up and down. So we're just going to pull bits in the water, just a little tiny bit. Don't need a lot, okay? A little bit under that guy there. And so again, lightly just pulling down. I don't want to run over another snowbank. I'll do my best to kind of just keep it in the water. Let me pull that down, straight up and down. This guy back here, you can get a little bit as well. Down underneath this little embankment, just a little bit. Again, straight down. Straight down. Let's see, I'm going to make this up. Let's imagine that's going to be a little embankment of snow. Down. And in here, right, things closer to us are a little bit bigger, so I'm going to be a little more black, a little bit heavier trying to avoid this hill here. Snow, but I'm pulling that straight down. And then right along this edge here. Oh yeah, let's get some black on that. Down. And they don't all have to be exactly the same. Boring. They don't all have to be the same thickness or pulled down the same length. Little dots. Come down short. I just have to go straight up and down. Creeping some along there on the edge. Same deal. Straight. Direction is important. All right. And I'm not loving this guy, so I'm going to make that a little thicker right there. Okay. Rinse out the brush. Just go back in with a little bit of watery black and work on kind of tracing along the bottom of these snow drifts. So we added the little dots, and now I'm just going back through and just defining them and their edge a little tiny bit. So I got some watery black. Maybe you already did that when you went through and pulled the black shadows down, but if you didn't put the black everywhere, just little teeny tiny bits, this is a good time to go back through and kind of find the bottom edge of all these little cliffs of snow hanging out. All right, we're going for some contrast. So take the same thinned out watery black, no drips, smack your paper towel a bit. I'm going to find little areas. Remember each layer of the cake where it's darkest, right? Where it's darkest. I'm just going to find some spots to add little sprinkles, if you will. Not everywhere, but just some sprinkles in the dark part of our cake. So there, maybe one or two there. The idea is that they're not all the same, and they're not all the same size, they're not all the same distance. Vary them up a little bit. Same back here. So I'm going to add a couple in there on the dark part. They're just like little brush strokes, little sprinkles. It's going to look real goofy until it doesn't. There we go. Call that good. I think that's going to create some good contrast for us in our trees. I love it. And I'm rinsing out that brush. Again, if you would like to get some clean water, we're going to go in with some lighter tones. We're going to finish it up with some lighter pinks and, of course, white for white snow. So I need to get some clean white paint. I'm going to keep on using my little brush here, and I'm going to go back into some pink. I'm going to mix some white and some red. Just kind of come up with a light pink. My paint is a little bit thick. Mix a little bit of water into it. I want to bring back some of these tones of pink. And I want it to be a little bit thinned out. A little see-through here and there. White, again, makes things very opaque and not see-through, but we're going to do our best. So imagine these roundy-moundy lumps of snow, okay? It's kind of the same deal. I'm going to find some areas along the tops of them. And these are random. This is not a Sharpie line. It's just kind of like a random little blob of snow. I'm going to pull some of it down and over onto the rest of the hill. This part can be frustrating, right? Because it's like, well, this doesn't look correct. Our brain doesn't like it when things don't look exactly how it should be. But just have some fun with it. It's a real loose brush stroke. Right? So kind of staying along the top of each little baguette, if you will. And then just kind of rolling and dabbing the side of my brush. You don't have to smear with your finger if you don't want to, but I think it's kind of fun. Some of this pink tone back in there. Oh, and again, just kind of along the tops of these guys. Tuck in the little feet of some of these little grasses here. Pull it on out to the edge of the water. Where can you add a thin goober or a thick goober of paint? And you kind of make it up. I don't know, you get to have some fun with it. What's going on back here? I don't know. I'm gonna make a mess. I think it's fun. And obviously the hill here, we need some kind of frosted on the top. Pull down. Let me trim off that edge of our hill. So it's a little more random. Oh, fun. I'm going to add a little of this also onto the trees. So, watery pink, no drips, smack your paper towel. Each little ballerina skirt where it was highlighted, I'm just going to add a couple little blueberry spots. I'm kind of rotating my brush around with some pink. Work around stuff in here. Thinking of where I can kind of like connect some of these gooberies together, right? So it's like flower petal, goober, 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 but they're kind of connected. Maybe one, and on the next one, maybe it's like connected. I don't know. Some of them are just, they're touching a little bit here and there. I'm gonna make it up there. Here's this next one in the background. I'm not trying to like cover up everything I did before. These are just sprinkles, or more like kind of globs of frosting with direction, right? They still kind of have some direction. On the pine trees. So here's like a glob of frosting. Here's a little glob of frosting with direction. Here's a little glob of frosting. Little ones, little ones, little ones, and maybe the next layer there's some thicker ones, and then just little ones like at the tip of the tree. Branches. Hopefully we're not completely covering everything up, but we are establishing almost like pink snow, like spots where the pink snow has fallen and kind of gathered on each of these boughs of the tree. So here's another little spot in the background. These trees are a little further away, so they're hard to see. Keep reloading your brush too. People get frustrated when they don't have enough paint on the brush. Fantastic. And now we get to go in with white. So I'm going to rinse out my brush a little bit there. Smack the paper towel. I'm going in with some clean white. Clean is a relative term because you're probably going to get some other colors mixed in your brush, and that's okay. But we are going to just touch what we just did on our trees. So the pink snow is going to get a little boop, boop, boop on top of it with white. I'm going to zoom in. Hopefully you can see what we're doing here. This little snowy area. Boop, boop. A little bit of white. Ooh, got some water coming out of my brush. Right. Right, kind of imagining these rungs of a tree, right? Each layer, and where it would have snow kind of falling on that bough, that bough, right? They're kind of like a layered, chunky layered cake. Here's the next one. Ooh, that's some thick paint. Here we go. Love it. Okay. Back on out. We're going to finish these trees up. Nail in the background. We probably wouldn't see so much detail back here because it is a little further away. I don't have to worry too much about this. Looking really perfect. And same deal on these trees in the background here. Finding some snow. Again, it's kind of an direction. Right? Little floofy ballerina skirts. Floofy to the left, straight to the middle, kind of floofy out to the right. Okay, but now these foreground trees, we can really see them. So top. Now you're in control. If there's something that you don't want to add this white snow on because you don't want to white it out, you don't have to. If you discover, like, man, I think I actually want this to be a little wider at the top, you can make it wider at the top. Now you're in control of the shape of your tree. Snow can go out a little further than the tree would normally. And again, we want to avoid it looking like a polka dotted tree. All of your snow drifts look about the same. You might want to vary them up a little bit. Fun. Love it. All right, we got to add some snow onto our hills as well. So kind of the same idea. We're going to start. Let's start back here and just some little blobs of snow, kind of working their way along the top of the hills. And the little blobs are kind of varied. And here's some on this one. This is called painterly. It's a very painterly painting. Make up some other, like what if there was a little hill here, maybe a little hill underneath some of these sticks here, right? Definitely know the top of the hill's here. Maybe a little roundy moundy. And then maybe this is more like a little top of something there too. Right? We can kind of vary it up. But here, oh, it's kind of a thick number of paint. I like it. Time. And obviously this front one, man, oh man, he's gonna get some snow right at the top. Random twisty brush strokes coming on down. On that hill. Now to really, really make this pop, take the very tip of this brush, and again, we're going to imagine left to right. I don't want to put the ruler on here because it's wet paint, but left to right, very lightly through the middle. You're just going to add some really soft left to right random reflections. in the middle of the water, and they can kind of go over the edge of some of those pulled down black spots. Little zigzags, left to right in our water, left to right, and random. You can push down a little harder, have some thicker ones as you get down to the bottom, but still flat. Keep them flat. Fantastic. You know, if you want to be a rebel and do that swooshy thing left to right, you can. Flat brush. Make it look even more like watery reflections. That could be fun too. I'll leave that up to you. This is a total Bob Ross move. But he loved to take a little bit in white, watery white, smack your paper towel, and just, oof, ever so lightly, right on the edge of where your ground meets the water. Like this is just, woo, of that black. So soft. Such a little detail thing. I want to do it, don't worry about it. Just where the blue meets the black. Oh my goodness. Tiny, tiny little white highlight there. So much fun. To finish this up, we definitely need some glow in the dark paint. So hopefully you have your glow in the dark paint. This might look really milky and opaque. Remember, that means like you can really see it. But it's going to dry completely clear and you won't see it, which is great because the glitter is going to stick to it and it's just going to look, the lights are glowing. You can be a little messy with it. All right, so I'm going to definitely take my glow in the dark paint and just paint a line on each of these. A little thick with it, a little goobery with it, that's okay. Lob it on a tree a little bit, doesn't matter. It's going to dry clear. Only going to see it where the glitter sticks to it if you want glitter. If you wanted to, you could add some little brush strokes kind of brushing up from it. And again, you might be like, oh, this just looks really like it's standing out. It won't stand out once it's dry. Not really. And glitter loves sticking to wet paint. I have paint that this will stick to. I think that would be great. I'm even going to put some of it left to right through my water, and I'm not really even being that careful with it. I'm being a little more thick with it because I want it to stand out when the lights go out. And again, it's going to dry transparent. Have I been saying it'll dry? It looks opaque, but it dries transparent. Fantastic. Use the back of my brush in some of this as well. I'm going to add some stars. See how much they stand out? They're going to dry clear. You won't see them except for a little shimmer. A little shimmer. I don't know why I said it like that, but it just felt right. A little shimmer, shimmer, shimmer. Cool. All right, wipe the handle off and then check this out. So while it's still wet, you want to work fast. Check out your glitter. Pop the top on that. You're just going to lightly kind of sprinkle that all over. You don't have to use it all up, but there you go. To make it stick to where you want it, I like to pick up my canvas, if it's a stretched canvas, and just dance it around. Kind of tap the bottom and dance it around where it's going to stick. Ooh, yeah. I just think that is so pretty. don't know if you can see sparkles. But to finish this up, I would definitely keep on rocking with the back of my brush in some white here and there. I would add snowflakes all over the place. I would use my finger like a copy machine for wherever I want some to go. Snowflakes hide a multitude of sins. You can have them literally all over the place. You want to wait till your glow in the dark is dry. Until I can. And I feel like if you have a white paint marker, you could draw some really perfect little snowflakes. Or you could take the back of your brush and just kind of scratch on some little cuties. Right? They don't have to be perfect. It's okay. Sometimes those are fun. So remember those glow in the dark ones, they're going to dry clear. Just be a little sparkly. And these ones are going to stand out more. So I'm going to wait till my glow in the dark puffy paint is, or not puffy paint, but my glow in the dark paint with glitter is dry. And then I'm just going to add more and more snowflakes all over the place. So once we get it to this point, I think it's looking pretty good. You are welcome to keep on working on it. Keep on adding what you'd like, making it look fun. If there's a spot you don't love on your painting, you get to add a snowflake, right? That's the best part. Go ahead and wash your hands. You'll get that paint off with a little soap. It'll be okay. And admire what you've done. Of course, you got to sign it. You can sign it with paint. You can sign it with a marker once it's dry. I will leave that up to you. But I think you should be very proud. All right, so we did it. We created our painting, and I hope you had as much fun as I did. I hope you can see all that sparkle. Please share on You Paintin' Party, You Paintin' Party's Facebook group what you did, and you can also find the Art Done Fun membership group. So if you're not a member yet, I highly recommend it. We do these classes all the time, and you get to paint live with me on Zoom, so that's really fun. But thank you for following along with my tutorial, and I look forward to painting with you again soon. All right.